Deep in an underground secret Pacific Island lair, Pop Culture Minefield presents Saturday Morning Fun Time. This is the Comic Relief Crusader telling you to get your morning cereal ready, because here we go.
I love that intro. That is such a cool intro.
Johnny Quest! I love Johnny Quest!
Yes. Keith and I, in case not here today, just so everybody knows, Keith's been absent a lot because he's been dealing with his mother and her medical conditions, and also his dad. And with his big, amazing family, he tends to be the one that's always having to deal with it. And he's always missed on here. It breaks my heart not having him around me, because he's sort of the other part of my brain when I'm doing these shows. And but today is our Blade Runner centric day. It's one of three this year. We did Blade Runner, the 1982 theatrical cut, which was actually the international cut, because I consider that the actual theatrical cut, not the one we got here in the US in 82, but the one that got released on videotape. And with the thumbs going in the eye and all that stuff that the MPAA was going to give it an X rating for. But sitting next to me here on the screen here is our good friend Vicky Rhodes, who, she knows I love her dearly. She's so awesome. She has one of the best Harrison Ford stories that makes Harrison Ford not sound like a cranky, grumpy old asshole. Because a lot of people get that idea from him, and he's really not like that. But I'm terrified of him, Vicky. I don't know if you knew that. I've been asked numerous times with all the interviews that I've done, and Gary as well. Gary and I have done a lot of interviews for Blade Zone, and somebody says, "Are you going to ever interview Ridley or Harrison?" I went, "No." And they're like, "Why?" I said, "Because I really idolize them. They're kind of like heroes to me, and I've learned never meet your heroes. Never meet them." And I'd heard and of course I actually I don't think I told you this last time. I lived in San Fernando back in the early 70s. And I was in second grade, and lo and behold, right down the street from us, 4 houses down, was this guy with a beard that kept working on his house. He's always up on the roof doing shit. And I never talked to him. I saw him. He had a big, thick, bushy beard, and I hung out with his oldest boy, who I went to school with, and that was, I think, Willard. I think it was Willard. No, Benjamin. Benjamin was the oldest boy. I think Willard's the younger one. I knew him. I met him. I'm not going to say I knew anybody, because we just played. And one time we played in the yard, and they had a pop-up sprinkler system, I think. Mm-hmm. It was a sprinkler system, and his mother yelled at us to get off the yard. And that's my only experience with the Fords. That's it. And but Vicky here, she's worked on films like The Three Amigos, which is a favorite of mine. And she's worked, I mean, come on, man. The Singing Bush. Come on.
Yes. Yes. I love the Singing Bush.
My favorite scenes in cinema history is that fucking bush scene. The Color Purple, which is a great film by Steven Spielberg. You've gotten to work with some great ones. You know, you worked on, what was it, the movie remake of Dragnet with Tom Hanks. And did I tell you my Tom Hanks story?
Good movie.
I know it's hard to believe, but I do work in film, and I'm a storyboard artist.
Dragnet 1987. So that
Dragnet 87, and I enjoyed that film. It's silly, but it was fun. You worked on. Wait, let me just put something up here. Hold on.
Prepare the Virgin. I don't like the sound of that.
Oh my God! Another connection to Harrison Ford with you is you worked on Ally McBeal, because of course in real life he married Alec McBeal. My God, what was another great one you worked on? Let me go through
Streets of Fire.
Oh, good movie.
You worked on The Long Walk Home. You were a first assistant director on that. And
with Whoopi again.
And by the way, a lot of people don't understand what assistant directors are, and we're going to go into that today, what their jobs are. They got to be on set badasses, and I have trouble imagining you as a badass. You worked on Quicksilver with Kevin Bacon.
I remember that
One Degree of Separation.
And by the way, that's another game you can play with me now, because I work for Dale Dye. You know who he is, right? He's my boss. Okay.
Ah!
We just had him on my show on Wednesday. He came on the show, and I've been working for him for 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
I'm his artist.
Uh-huh.
And, back in the 20-teens, I had done the storyboards and production art for a still unproduced film called No Better Place to Die. And on Valentine's Day Eve, like the day before Valentine's Day, I woke up and found out, oh, Tom Hanks is my boss now. He's the executive producer on the film. I'm like, that's cool. That is so cool. And I went, huh. And I like wrote a few people, hey, look, Tom Hanks is a producer on the film I'm working on. Yeah. I go to bed that night, and then I wake up at 0 dark 30 on Valentine's Day like this. I went, oh my God, I work with Tom Hanks. It took a whole 24 hours for it to really kick in. Go to my portfolio, online portfolio, no mention of it. I'm like, this changes everything. No, it didn't. Didn't change anything. Because really, I felt like I really can't really say anything until the film starts it's in pre-production. Now it's sort of in dormancy, waiting to come back again. Because we talked about it on Wednesday, because I'm never giving up on that film. It's going to be a great World War II film. But at the same time, while I'm working for Tom, I put out a meme that said, Tom Hanks can only play 2 characters in a film. 1, Forrest Gump. Number 2, Tom Hanks. And it got back to him that I did that. They showed it to him.
Oh, what did he say?
And what I was told is he didn't say anything. He went, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He did that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And walked away with a big smile on his face. Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. I was just being silly, and I'm like, oh shit. Wouldn't be the first time I got in trouble with a drill instructor or a senior officer.
So Vicky, can you explain what a second
Yes.
ED
Tell
is?
them what a second or assistant director is, period.
Period. Yes. So you have in the office, you've got the producers and the production manager, and those are the people who run everything. But then when you're on the set, the director is the head, but the next person down, one step, is the assistant director, and it's normally called the first assistant director. And I will go into what they do, but just while I'm there. So the first assistant director is kind of shackled to the camera. So you can't go get somebody or go make sure something happens. So you have an assistant, second assistant director. And I will tell you what those people do. And then sometimes you have, if it's a huge movie, you may have another assistant, a second. You may have PAs, production assistants. But my main 2 jobs are to take the script and break it down into the order in which we will shoot it. Because you do not shoot in chronological order. You really shoot in order of locations.
Location. Yep.
So if scene 17 is in Sam's apartment and scene 25 is in Sam's apartment and scene 50 is in Sam's apartment, you do not go back to Sam's apartment 3 times. And if you can, you will shoot those in order to help the actors so that they know what they're doing. But in reality, and there's times when actor availability changes your schedule because the actor has gone to Europe to go do something else, or they're on guest starring on some TV show. Sometimes it's the location that suddenly falls through and you can't use it. But so it's kind of like you have all the pieces to the puzzle, but you do not know what the puzzle is supposed to look like. And so you're just sitting there putting all the pieces together. And when you get done, all the pieces should be there. And then you have the picture. but the pieces are you don't know where they're going,
Right.
and you tend to a good assistant director, if they can, you do exteriors first, so that you have interiors you can go to if the weather goes bad. Because if you do all the interiors and then you go outside and the weather's bad, you're screwed. So the second most important thing that I do is I run the set. So as far as we're starting to work, we have wrapped for the day, we're going to this scene, we have 2 more shots of this scene, I get all of that information from the director, and then I disseminate it through the entire crew. So I am basically running the set, which confuses a lot of people. And I have done a lot of location work. And I was in Atlanta once, and somebody went up to my assistant and they said, "Who's that?" and pointed over towards me. And he thought, well, that's not the director. He must be wanting to the director. He goes, "Oh, well, that's the director." He said, "No. Who's that?" He says, "Oh, that's the first assistant." He says, "She seems to be in charge." He says, "Yes, well, she is in charge." And so he said, "I want to meet her." And it turned out he was a reporter, and he interviewed me. So I've actually been interviewed about 4 times around the country, because nobody knows what I do.
Well, I gotta I want to punch this in there with you is like part of what you're talking about, because like when I went to film school, the first thing that I learned was who's in charge of this area and who's in charge of this area. Production manager is everybody outside the shooting ring, and then everybody within the shooting area is under the purveyance of you. You are the assistant director. Your job is to handle everything going on inside the circle. And which great example of the breakdown of that is with the shit that happened with Christian Bale. Because in that situation, that would normally have been handled by both the assistant director and the production manager. And nobody seemed to step up in that situation. And I'm curious to ask you, what do you think happened there? Why nobody stopped him?
Sometimes there's an 800-pound gorilla in the room.
He's the 800-pound gorilla. Okay.
And you kind of, can I take on this 800-pound gorilla? No. I need somebody to come in here with some tranquilizer guns and some darts, and bigger than me, not necessarily physically bigger than me, but higher on the food chain, I like to say. And sometimes it's just you slipping away and getting a phone call to the producer saying, "Get down here." And because I can interact with the stars, I can tell them what they're doing, I can tell them what's next, I can make sure all of that. But if there's a big problem like that, that's higher than my pay bracket.
Got you. Have you ever run into that on a set yourself?
I did have 2 actors start a fight because they were supposed
on the set.
On the set, yeah.
Ooh.
They were not supposed to like each other, and it's not that they didn't like each other. It's just that they didn't like each other. It's not like there was they didn't care one way or the other. But when they started in the scene, they got sometimes reality and make-believe kind of blend together. And they started really pushing each other and got into a big fight. Fortunately, you had people who could pull
handle
them off.
An 800-pound gorilla.
Right. Because they're like, that's not what you're asking for. But it's very, I've had one thing, this is a great story. When I was doing The Long Walk Home, with Sissy Spacek and Whoopi Goldberg. I worked with Whoopi before on Color Purple. I've actually worked with her 4 times. And we're doing the scene where it's the end of the movie. They're in the parking lot. All of the white men in the town have surrounded these 8 or 9 Black women and Sissy and her daughter. And so the people there are like, what can we say and what can we not say? And I said, say whatever you want to say, call them whatever you want to call them. And we would do the scene. And when we would say cut, Whoopi would grab the nearest person and hug them. Whoever she was next to, whoever she saw, she would go and hug them. And it broke the mood. And we went back to, we're making a movie. This is not real. This is not what happened. And I very much respect it because we shot it in Montgomery, Alabama, where it all happened. And we didn't shoot it that long ago. So some of the people who were there. And I very much appreciated that people said, may I say something like this instead of free reign. But that's also something that's not something I told her to do, but it was something that she felt like she wanted to break that tension. And this was the fastest way to do it because everybody's seeing them and she just, she decided to do that. So, sometimes you have fights. I had a guy get mad at the makeup man and try to hit him. I don't understand it and I don't condone it. And I always tell people when I go to an interview, I said, if you want a screamer, then you don't want me. I don't scream. I may use sarcasm. I may use my rapier wit, but I don't, there's no reason for yelling at people. And so unfortunately, that's what most people think assistant directors do is they've got the jodhpurs and they've got the riding boots and they've got the crop and they've got the hat and they're just screaming.
Well, they are often the axe cutters. Historically, they're the ones who end up firing a lot of people off of a set.
Well, they're the ones that are bringing attention to the people who are not doing their jobs.
Right.
They cannot fire somebody.
Oh, I thought they did. I thought they did have fire ability for crew.
No, the production manager.
I guess because of unions, that can cause a problem. So, you just bring it to their attention who needs to be fired. Okay.
Exactly. You say this person is not doing their job. Or they made a mistake and make a mistake, own up to it. It will cut everything in half. And let me go back to assistant director. So the second assistant director can be not only the legs of the first assistant director, but what they do is the schedule that I made for the whole movie breaks down into sequences. So this sequence will be on this day, and this and this and this is, and so then from there you can get what we call a day out of days, which is how many days the person works. So like number 1 on the call sheet will work every day, most likely. 1 or 2 or 3 may all work, most of the time. And then as you get down, it could be somebody who works 1 day for 1 scene, whatever. So the second assistant makes a call sheet, and that call sheet is specifically what is happening on that day. What equipment do we need? What location are we in? What scenes are we doing? And what kind of extras do we need? Or what kind of cars do we need? What kind of vehicles do we need? And then they are somebody who is on the set and they block the background. So in particular, especially like on Color Purple, I blocked all the background. Now, if you don't pay any attention to the background, I did it right, because I'm trying to make the background look like regular, normal, everyday life. And these people happen to talk, and these people happen to not talk. It's one of my favorite things that I ever did. Is I was always coming up with little scenarios and little vignettes between the extras that they could express physically, but they couldn't say. So on a movie I did, we were having the two actors come out. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and the woman gets on a bus and the guy walks away. And so we're following, now we're in the bus and we're going down the road. So I said, well, it can't have a lot of people. It's 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. So I had these two guys and I have them walking down the street. And I said, okay, here's your deal. You're going this way. When you get to the corner, your favorite bar is that way, and your favorite bar is that way. And you went to his favorite bar last time. And if you could have seen these guys just arguing, like, why do we always have to? And I was like, whatever they're saying, they know what they're saying. And it looks real because they're having a conversation, but they're pantomiming it. And so this is what I used to always do is, okay, this is, you're walking into your office and the secretary's trying to give you your messages and you never take your messages. There's always a problem, because the problem is what will physically manifest itself. So also the second deals with the actors and what time do they need to come in? How much time do they need to get ready? So if we say at 7 o'clock, we want to start start rehearsing, how much ahead of that do they need to be so that when we come in and we interrupt that with a rehearsal, when they finish lighting, we should be finished. So everybody finishes at the same time. I say sometimes my job is like a chef at a convention center. You have 300 dishes that all have to be ready at the same time, but you can't start the corn when you start the steak, or else you're going.
You got to know which one cooks faster, and get that timing down. Because I was a student chef, and I'm still a huge cook. I love cooking. Plus, I'm huge, and my nickname is Sasquatch.
You are not. But this is the thing, is that you want everything to be ready at the same time. So you have to kind of backtrack and see where we are. And then there's, if there's a second or a trainee, like I was a trainee on Blade Runner, there's a thing called the production report. These are the three most important: the schedule, the call sheet, and the production
can I
report.
add something in here for you, Victoria?
Yes.
Okay. You were actually a trainee on 3 projects, according to IMDb.
Yes.
And the first one is actually a great film based off of a stage play. I don't know if it was ever produced as a stage play, but it was originally meant to be a stage play. I don't know.
Yes,
Whose life is it
on Broadway.
It was. Okay.
Yes.
Richard Dreyfuss in Whose Life Is It Anyway? The second one is you worked with the Magical World of Disney on Sundays. That was my time slot as a kid, man. You got to start with that. How much did you do with them?
I worked at Disney for about 2 years. At the time, Disney was very much like Walt had it. So there were still squirrels on the main drag, going around in the trees. In the back, they had just done Something Wicked This Way Comes. And so they had just kind of redone some of the back lot, but they had a big Western street and they did Westerns. And so they decided that they were going to try to do a pilot of Pollyanna. And that's what I did. And
you worked on the Adventures of Pollyanna in '82.
Yes, with
Patsy. And then your third film was Blade Runner, where you had the honor of being chased around by Harrison Ford.
Yes. Actually, Blade Runner was my second film.
Oh, so it was the other way. Okay,
Yes.
so
So
it was Whose Life Is It Anyway, Blade Runner,
and then Blade
Disney.
Runner.
And
yes,
then Disney.
and then Disney. And then don't forget Love Boat.
Oh, I didn't know you worked on Love Boat.
Oh, yes.
You worked on a couple of things here. Now, I want to point this out because a lot of Blade Runner fans are fans of Streets of Fire.
Ah, yes.
But I am personally also a fan of Mike's Murder.
Yes. Yes.
I love that movie.
Yes.
But there it is. I just saw it. Because you also worked, by the way, I love this, Scarecrow and Mrs. King. But you worked on The Love Boat. And you worked on 2 episodes there. You worked on Finnegan Begin Again in 85. And then you went to Color Purple, Quicksilver. Blue City is a film that a lot of people don't remember. I remember the film. I saw it in the theater. I could not watch Extremities. I've still never seen it because it just was too rough a subject matter for me. But you got to work there with Farrah Fawcett. Then you went the opposite direction with Three Amigos.
I had to. I had just been on Extremities for the last 3 months. I said,
oh my God.
If I don't laugh, I'm going to kill myself.
Man, because it's a dark subject. If nobody knows that one, go look that film up. I challenge you to watch it and then come back to me and say that you're still happy. Because that's a depressing film.
The funny thing, quick story. So a lot of times when the film is finished, you have a cast and crew screening. And so they said, okay, everybody come and here's the screening. And the first thing was an establishing shot of the house. And everybody went, ah! It's like the movie hadn't even started yet. And we were already had PTSD.
Oh my God. Hey, I've got some comments in the chat I want to get to. And I also want to say hi to everybody in our chat today. I know we're going to have a few Blade Runner fans visiting us today. They don't normally watch us. But reminder, you should, because I'm the founder of Blade Zone, for God's sake. I'm always going to at some point talk about Blade Runner, argue with somebody on screen about Deckard not being a replicant or being a replicant. So I want to welcome, let's see who all got here. We got Logical Spock, Anima Confusa, who is the love of my life, Deleted Scenes, Andy Morrow from the UK, Slasher Fred, Monkey Jeebus, thank you, come again, Pat S., Dragon Ruse, Low Spec Linux Laptop is here.
He's
Helena
cool. He's a cool
06. I'm assuming that's somebody either with you or from the Blade Runner community. Helena 06. Do you know that one t-shirt? No? No, that's probably from the Blade Runner community.
Yeah.
And then
so.
Let's see. Lady V Elements is here. And we've got apparently quite a few people watching right now. I really promoted the crap out of this, but it doesn't look like anybody else is going to be here. So you're Johnny on the spot, Vicky.
Well, a good thing.
I'm going to focus all my attention on you now.
Exactly. Well,
although it does look like Rick Howard did show up. I can see Rick down there with his little avatar.
In his little bubble, but I don't.
Hey, buddy, can you hear us at all? Can you speak? Yeah, he's still having internet problems. He messaged me a little bit ago. But I do want to point out that we got my buddy T-shirted historian is here. Big Blade Runner fan. I did invite Doomcock, but I didn't think he'd make it because his work schedule is really weird. You probably don't know who that is, Vicky, but he's very well known in the entertainment analysis and news community, rumors and all that stuff. He's probably one of the most watched shows on YouTube for that. Next to him, you got Midnight's Edge, and Andre is promising to give his best to try to show up to say hi to you. Andre is from Norway. He's a Norwegian, and he is a big, he's a journalist to begin with, but he has one of the most popular shows on YouTube. And now Paul was supposed to be here, but all we got was this photo. He's at the Cannes Film Festival. He wrote me last night, and he's like, hey, I'm going to try to get back. I'm going to try to get back to the hotel in time, but I might not make it. So that was a message from him. Then he messaged me a little bit ago going, not going to make it back in time. So we love Paul. I love Paul. Paul is, I was trying to figure out what to do back in 95. What am I going to do? So I created a website. It was called Replicant City, 1995. I put it on, what was it? Angel Cities. What was that? It?
Angel Fire.
Angel Fire. And you can actually still find those pages. They still exist. And one of the subsections, on Wayback, one of the subsections of Replicant City was Blade Zone, where I wanted to discuss things with other people. I created a little first version of the round table where we were able to, it was like a bulletin board within Angel City. And we would talk about Blade Runner a little bit. And I told people, and I'm going to mention it here, I said, the whole question of whether Deckard was a replicant or not didn't exist until Ridley said something. I said, nobody, and here's why I have my argument is that he's not, is because nobody even considered it until Ridley said something. So clearly he didn't make his fucking point in the movie that he was a replicant. Everybody just thought it was bad lighting that Holden and Deckard's eyes both glow.
Yeah, and I have my opinion about that. And that is, I think what happened, and I have seen someone else who may have said something along these lines. It could have been Charles when he did the final cut. There's a scene with Rachel and Deckard in his apartment, and there's a special lighting apparatus that they
put down low when Harrison was slightly out of focus. That's when his eyes glow. And
I think that was a mistake.
He says it wasn't. Ridley says he did that on purpose. Yeah, you see, now I'm with you on this, Vic. I'm with you on this because, the reason Paul and I are friends is because he knows that Gary Willoughby and I took a deep dive into Blade Runner in a way more than other people. And we are acutely aware, because Gary and I fall on the same side of the fence, he's not a replicant. And again, the proof in the pudding is this. There wasn't even a discussion about it until that got put out. And I think the first place it mentioned was in Paul's book. I think Paul's book is where it got mentioned the first time. And then all of a sudden, it became the debate. And it is split right down the middle with fans. Right down the middle. Because once that was introduced that he was a replicant or might be a replicant, 50% of the audience went with it. 50% went no. And here's my stance. And you tell me what you think of my opinion. A film director is nothing more than a prosecuting or defense attorney, trying to make his case. The judge and jury is the audience. We are the ones who decide what worked and what didn't work. And I would still say, proof in the pudding, that because nobody considered that until after he said something, he was never a replicant until he said something.
Right.
And that's when it started. And you know as well as I do that I do believe, I'm pretty certain on this, that it was Paul that when he published the book Future Noir, that was the first mentioning of Deckard as a replicant.
Well, my theory, especially from film school, was I went to USC's film school, and they said that a film is written 3 times. It's written once by the screenwriter. It's written again by the director, because the director can only physically do certain things and capture certain moments. And it's written the 3rd time by the editor, who can only use what you filmed.
That's right. If it's not in the script, it's not in the movie.
Exactly. And if it's not, and if you didn't shoot it, it's not anywhere.
Right.
So I can't put a little plug in saying there's a scene here where such and such happens. I know for a fact that Harrison did not ever consider that Deckard.
Yeah, well, that was where the fight between them began. I don't know if you witnessed that at all, but I do know that because when they did 2049, because I don't know if you're aware of this, 2049, Ridley was going to direct it, okay? He was out there promoting the shit out of it. Got Harrison Ford to come back. They sat down to drink after they cast Ryan Reynolds. sat down to drink some Johnny Walker out of a Blade Runner bottle. It was really nice celebration. And during the drinking and celebration, it was mentioned the argument started again. And they made it out in the press and in the marketing that it was just some old banter. No, Harrison Ford wasn't fucking around. He didn't like that shit, and it pissed him off. And I know for a fact that he threatened to walk on 2049 if that was to continue. And that is why Ridley was demoted down to producer.
Yeah.
Because basically Harrison wasn't going to continue on the project if they're going to go that avenue again, because he didn't want to deal with it.
Right.
It frustrated. It was a real source of tension and frustration on the set between him and Ridley. And when the minute I read that built up again, and then suddenly, like right after that, Ridley was executive producer and they were bringing in Denis Villeneuve. I'm like, Ridley got demoted because of that argument. And that's really what happened, because you can make a film without Ridley but you can't make a film like that without Harrison Ford.
No.
Harrison Ford was the major drive for that film.
And Harrison was saying the audience has to see
the
movie through the eyes of someone. And they can't see it through the eyes of somebody. A replicant, I don't know what that is. I don't know what their life. We don't know anything about their lives before the movie starts. We don't know their past. We don't know what they've done in the last 3.5 years. And so he's like, I'm that person is introducing you to that. And it has to be a person so that you can kind of see, wow, here's a person who supposedly has feelings, who has none. And here's the replicant who supposedly has none and has all the feelings. And that was the dichotomy that he was working on and continued to work on. And because, we shot that scene in the apartment, not at the beginning, we shot it later on. I think it was something like, oh, I wonder if we can fix that and, not have his eyes light up because it was a mistake. And instead, Ridley was like, what if he is a replicant? And just, I think he went with it. And Ridley's not the kind of person who changes his mind about things he's made up his mind about. Now, he can change his mind 4,000 times before he makes up his mind. Mm-hmm. But he can't, once he's decided that he likes this argument, or he likes an argument, or he likes that argument, he and Harrison did not see eye to eye on the original Blade Runner. Correct.
And I got to tell you, because Harrison had some really good influences on the film, in the fact that in the initial shooting script, he really wasn't doing any detecting. And Harrison fought for that. And so they had him do more detective work within the film. And Hampton Fancher was like pretty much there. I don't know about David Peoples being there, but I know Hampton was on there and available to work with them on the script. Did he hang around the set a lot? Did you see him a lot? Or David Peoples?
No, because you have to remember that 90% of the movie takes place at night. And most of that is exterior and most of that is in the rain. So if you could be at home in bed in the middle of summer, enjoying the sun, I wouldn't be there if I didn't have to be there. We used to sing it was shot at Warner Brothers for the studio.
Yeah, on the back lot.
On the back lot. And there's a hill between the valley and the basin of Los Angeles. And the sun would come up over this hill. And so about right before the sun comes up, these are little tricks that you find out when you shoot a lot of nights. Right before the sun comes up, the temperature drops. So just as it was getting a little more chilly, we would look at the sun and we go, the sun will come out.
Oh my God. No. Andy.
Because when the sun came out, that meant we could go home.
It's time to go home.
It's time to go home. We can't shoot night. You can shoot day for night, but you can't shoot night for day. And it was crazy. So a lot of times, and let me just say this about rain. If you don't light it, you don't see it. Yeah. So you have to have really big raindrops, which are made by rain towers. So it's like a stick that goes up, and then it has like a sprinkler on the top, because rain is supposed to come down, not go sideways, not come up. So the rain is big drops, and then you backlight it so that you can see it. Now, I don't know, every once in a while, there's a scene where it starts raining in the middle of the scene, and people inexplicably start getting wet.
People hate getting wet.
There's a scene there. I will never forget. There was a scene in X-Files where they're out in the woods, and it's Scully and Mulder talking. And as they're talking, water just starts forming and dripping down their face. And then their shoulders start getting darker where it's getting wet. And I'm like, if it started in the middle of the scene and there's nothing they can do, there's nothing they can do. Now, especially if it's a wide shot, there's only so much you can do. But if you get a smaller shot, then you can, put a tarp over it. But they couldn't do that. And so people just start getting wet for no reason, which is very funny to me. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So the great thing, here's another tidbit. When special effects was there, visual effects was there, DreamWorks, Dreamscape, Dream something, they would say, don't do the rain. We will put the rain in digitally. So when we found out that the special effects guys were coming, we're like, yay! Because that meant we were not going to be drenched in rain. Because if you're standing in a rain tower like that, it takes you about a minute and a half to get soaked all the way through. So we had to know that with all the street people, we had to, they're going to be in the rain. The cars, all those cars, we had 30 something cars. But when we would do a rehearsal, Ridley needs to see exactly what he's going to see. So we'd say, can we do the rehearsal without the cars? Because the cars were not made with the thought it's going to be torrential rain. And he'd say, no, I need to see the cars. So we do a rehearsal, and 4 cars would stop working. And so then we would do another rehearsal, and 4 more cars would stop working. And we're like, please, just imagine there are cars coming through. No, I have to see it. So, there's times when he made it a little harder on the crew, as far as things that could take less time, take less effort. Not that everybody is just, going balls out. But the other little thing was Ridley. Okay, so when you're trying to set up a shot, a lot of times if you're trying to look for a lens, you put a zoom lens on, and then you can just kind of zoom in and out and decide which one you want, and then you say, okay, I want this lens or I want this lens. But Ridley would not do that. Ridley had to see the hard lens. So every time they'd go and they put the lens on, and he'd look at it and he goes, no, this is not the one. So they would go and they would take that away, and they come and bring another one. They no, that's not the one. And when this
Well,
happened,
that's a good. This is a good segue for me to
Yes.
ask you, because one, Helena 06 wanted to ask about the T-shirt war, and but before we get to that, is one of the what I was told is that one of the reasons why Ridley picked Jordan Cronenweth was because Jordan would allow him to have more control over the lenses in the film, which is usually the DP. That's their job. They're in charge of two things: the lens, where the camera goes, that part, and then also the lighting. And a lot of people don't know that that's what DPs do, but a director of photography's job is to light the scene and shoot the scene, and the director is behind him, giving direction. But Ridley wasn't like that, because Ridley was, and I've said this again and again, one of his weaknesses is he's not a really great director of actors. What he's a great director of is photography. His films, even his TV shows, are beautiful for a reason. He is absolutely in control of the environment of what he's shooting in. And working on Blade Runner, I'm sure you coughed and choked a few times in the smoky scenes, that he wanted atmosphere.
Every single scene in the movie, interior, exterior,
he wanted smoke. And he was just choking people out. And Carpenter did the same thing with The Thing, because they used in order to create the environment, he would smoke areas up. And but Ridley was the worst from what I've heard. He's absolutely the worst, and people hated that. They would get choked out of the set.
PTSD from bee smoke from that movie. If I smell
people don't know that stuff is nasty.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very, very thick.
It's acrid. Yeah.
But it's very good for outside. And when we were on the street, that's what would hang. That's what would work, as opposed to the mineral oil that would be better inside. So if I smell bee smoke, I am on the back lot at Warner Bros. I literally am for a second, which is very strange. And then the mineral oil is interesting because mineral oil makes you poo. It's like a laxative. So we're all very, very regular inside, and we are bees on the outside.
By the way, before we go to break, again, I wanted to point out that Paul is in, Cannes Film Festival. And he sent a message. He wanted me to display this for everybody. Say hi to everyone for me. And so now I did, Paul, and you can't get on to me that I didn't actually do that. Paul, by the way, did you get to meet him? Paul
No, not at the time, no.
Because I know he was on set a lot.
He was on set a lot, but there was that little core of the camera. We always had two cameras. So we had two operators, two first assistants, a second assistant. We had Jordan. We had Ridley. Michael Dealey was never far away from Ridley. We had Katie and Ivor. And so those were the people who were, to me, the main. And then you had department heads who could come in. Larry Paul, the production designer, different department heads could come in.
Oh, you brought him up. I had to say something.
Yes.
I had to tell you this. I know you don't know this story. I was friends, God rest his soul. Morgan Paul was a friend of Gary's and mine. We loved that guy. We loved him so much. What a sweetheart. Although you never took a call from him after 1 PM because you knew he was hammered. And one of his favorite things he would do when he would message either me or Gary, are you going to be talking to, I just forgot her name, Joanna Cassidy? Man, I wanted to bang her in the movie. Man, I was just always trying to hook up with her. You think you guys can hook me up? And I'm like, Gary, I don't know about you, Gary. I'm not hooking him up. Morgan's just one of those sweetheart guys. We had a good friendship with him. But Terry Rawlings actually had such a huge thing with that too. And I want to get into him before we end the show today. But Lawrence G. Paul had a conversation with Morgan one day. It was like early production because Morgan was there from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was doing a lot of assistant work, he was reading to the other actors even during the not rehearsals where they were trying out for the part. And auditions. Thank you. He was Harrison Ford for them.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, in the first trailer, that's not Harrison Ford's voice for the narration. That's Morgan Paul. But Morgan ran into Lawrence and says, "You're not a real Paul." And Lawrence is like, "What?" And Morgan says, "I'm from the traditional family with the 2 L's at the end. We come from West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and you're not in that family, are you?" And he goes, "No, I added the L." And that's a fact. Lawrence Paul did not actually have the 2 L's. He added that when he started working in film.
You have to have your film name. You have to have, that Harrison Ford originally had to have an initial because there was a Harrison Ford.
Because there was Michael J. Fox took the name Michael J. Fox because there was another Michael Fox.
And Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton changed his name too.
Yeah,
is that right?
Keaton. Yep. Yeah.
By the way, William is here. William joined us. William is our good friend. He runs a comic book shop. Well, more than that, it's really it's kind of a mini theater. It's a nice little place in Las Vegas. And welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah, sorry I'm late, but it was Memorial Day on.
Oh, I got you, man. It's Memorial Day weekend. As veterans, we take that stuff very seriously.
Yeah.
So Memorial Day is not like Veterans Day. It is a completely different day. It is not about us. It is about those who made the ultimate sacrifice for this country. And it was started all the way back with the Civil War. And it goes to this day. It was originally called, what was the name of it, Wayne? Do you remember? It had a different name. And then it became Memorial Day.
I haven't had to bring that up since we did
Oh,
this
my God. I can't believe I forgot this. This shit was beat into me by my dad, who was a professor of history, and he beat that into me.
by my drill sergeant, but a lot about that guy I have tried to forget.
Decoration Day.
Maybe that's why
Decoration Day. That is it. Decoration Day.
Yeah, Decoration Day.
And then it evolved into Memorial Day. And we always tell people it's not about although other countries have their own version of Memorial Day. Ours is specifically about our country, but we do celebrate the Allied forces that have served alongside us. But Memorial Day is all about our men and women who served this country and were killed in that service.
Oh, by the way, there is no such thing as a happy Memorial Day. When I hear that, I cringe.
Yeah, it bugs the crap out of me.
Happy Memorial Day.
It's like, yeah, it always throws me off.
Happy funeral.
Yeah.
Happy funeral day.
Vicky, I do have a question, Vicky.
Yes. Get it out real quick because we got to go to break in about 3 minutes.
I know Edward James Olmos creates Sea Speak and whatnot. There's a story of him basically improvising, doing all the origami stuff. Is that true, or was that actually planned out for the scenes?
The origami was planned out. We had a perfect because you can't just have one. Because if something happens to it, you're screwed. So they had somebody who made all the unicorns, who made the little man for Leon's apartment, that made the chicken, because it's not something that you could actually do in real life, in real time. So that was all of that was already put in the movie. I don't know if they were specifically said this is a chicken, this is a unicorn, or so. I only remember that it says he's making something and then he puts it down.
Yeah, because Edward James almost has this whole thing where he's talking about he was just improvising on the scene and whatnot. So it's just an actor exaggerating things.
Yeah, he can look at, the way he may be saying is when he finished it, how he looked at it, and on one he blows on it like he's giving it life. He's looking at it and he goes, and then he puts it down. So he may mean that kind of thing, that he was improvising, because that probably wasn't in the movie. How he dealt with the origami, as opposed to he's sitting there, you could think of somebody who's just sitting there bored, putting something, and then they kind of lay it down and it's not interesting. This was like, he's making these things and he's giving them life to me. That was always my interpretation when he blew on the one of them.
I always interpreted that as him, because that when you do paper stuff, that it's kind of flat on the sides, and I thought, is he blowing into to fluff it up? But that's an interesting take on it, that he's giving it life. I like that.
That's what I came up with. For me, that makes his character more interesting. Is like, this isn't just an idle thing that I'm doing. This is not just something that I do when I'm bored. This is something that it's kind of like him being Tyrell, is that he's creating life, but he's just creating the origami life.
What that reminds me of in many ways, and we're about 30 seconds away from going to break, but there is an actor from the old days, character actor. I'm trying to find his name right now because it escapes me. Strother Martin. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Stewart did a film with him, and in the film, he noticed that Strother Martin had a ball and a string. And he turned to Ford, who was the director, and says, "Now, I'm not going to do this scene with him if he's got both the ball and the string, because no one's going to notice me." And that's sort of what it is with him, that, he stole a lot of the scenes he's in. And he's in the background. He's really not a major, he's an important character, but not a major character in the film. Mm-hmm. He's that background character who you just keep seeing. But all right, Martin or John, who's in charge of the commercial break? Because we need to go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
I guess that's me, since...
Oh, nobody was planning. Okay. Hi, guys. This is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh wow, we survived. Welcome back to the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA.
You're reading a magazine. You come across a full-page nude photo of a girl.
Is this testing whether I'm a replicant or a lesbian, Mr. Deckard?
I wanted to throw that little clip in. By the way, Paul just messaged me again, so I got to share this.
Okay.
Paul says, it's wonderful that you're doing this, but tell everybody Jerry Lewis is still big in France.
Big in France.
So I'm getting these like little snippet updates from Paul over there in Cannes. That's so funny. And here he is in front of the sign there in front of the festival. I wish he could have been here, but I'm really happy he's over there having a good time. You are now. What are you working on now? Are you working on anything?
My tan.
You know what? When I was in the Army, I grew up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, in the Black community. I was the only white kid in our community. I was like, that was it for like 4 or 5 years, and then finally some other poor white kids moved into the neighborhood. And my buddy Vic Armstrong always said that I'm an adopted member of the Black community of Fredericksburg, because I'm very I love them. I love being there. I didn't want to hang out with most of the white kids. I wanted to hang out with all my Black friends because they were fun. Vic and I would hide in his dad's basement and listen to his dad's Richard Pryor albums and Red Fox. And I just forgot his name. He was on the Dave Chappelle show a lot. Just so nasty but funny, blue comedy, but really funny shit.
Red Fox.
Yeah, it was Red Fox always killed me. Like on one of his albums, I don't know if you remember him doing this, but he goes, I used to sit on the subway and point and laugh at ugly people. And then one day, a lady was pointing and laughing at me. I didn't like it. Well, stop doing that shit.
Yeah, those guys would not be able to exist today.
No. But we say stuff like that, and we got Chappelle. We got Chappelle. We got Bill Burr pushing the envelope. My God, there are a handful of comedians out there pushing it, and they got to keep up. Because freedom of speech is so important. Whether you agree with it, that's what freedom of speech is about, is having to hear things that you don't agree with, and also respond with things that person doesn't agree with. And that's free speech. And I love it. It's great, except in my house. You can't talk about anything I do. If you can't tell me Deckard's a replicant, I get mad.
You know what Vicky is working on? Vicky is working on keeping her eternal beauty pure.
And Deckard is
listen to you, Shinatsky. By the way, Shinatsky is single, and he's looking. He's looking. He's a filmmaker too, by the way.
Gary.
Fuck you, Shinatsky. Shinatsky is a filmmaker.
By the way. I actually worked on Everybody Hates Chris. And we had an episode where they snuck up to the Undertaker's apartment and listened to the Richard Pryor album. And the kids got in trouble because they were like, hey, this is funny. I'm going to take it to my white school and tell them all about it. He gets sent to the principal's office.
That's what brought it up. I was 11 years old when I discovered that my Black friends blushed and could tan and get sunburn. And I was like, really? Because I thought the melanin in the skin prevented that. And it's like, no. Like one of my best friends, Pee Wee, man, and Chucky, those guys all got sunburn when we went to the beach. It was like, oh man, I would have given you some of my lotion if I didn't know. I felt like an ignorant prick.
Well, we forget about it, and it's not as, not that it's not important, but it's not as important because we have more melanin. But when my dad used to get, we called it tickled. You weren't physically tickling him, but something that he was thinking of made him laugh. He would turn beet red and his eyes would water and he couldn't talk. And so you always wanted to try to say something funny enough that my dad would get tickled and turn beet red. And so when I was working on Everybody Hates Chris, Allie was his last name. I could only remember Allie McBeal right now. Allie Leroy was the showrunner. And every once in a while he would direct an episode. And on the last episode, I said, I don't know what I said, but whatever it was, he turned beet red and his eyes started watering. He couldn't talk. I go, Daddy!
Yeah, like I had a buddy of mine, Peabody, lost him. God, he died from diabetes back in 2008. And Peabody, I made a joke it was at his expense, but it was done in a very loving and playful way because he didn't know that I knew he was gay. And he came out to me And I said, you know, I already knew that, right? And he goes, no. And I said, yeah, because you're on the flag squad, and I used to play with you and call you a flagette. And he turned so fucking red. And I was like, holy crap, you really blush. But he didn't eat right. He ate a lot of fried foods, and it killed him.
Yeah.
And in fact, all of my friends that have died in the last 20 years, every single one of them diabetes. Every single one of them from high school.
There's a food, they call it food desert, that where for a very, very, very long time, the supermarkets would not open a supermarket in a Black area. And so they didn't have fresh fruit or fresh anything. And unless you had to get on a bus to get to the next neighborhood that had them. And that's why there's such a huge push right now for home gardens, and take the median and put some plants on it. And in the schools, let's grow some lettuce. Let's grow some this. It's all a learning thing. I remember when I was in second grade, we grew radishes. And I thought, wow, I can't believe it. We had this tiny seed. We have the radish. And so we plucked all the radishes, and they said, okay, eat it. Now, I'd never had a radish before. So I thought it's going to taste like an apple because it's red on the outside, it's white on the inside. And they don't. So it was a nice lesson. But when it got to the end, I was like, I wish it had been something else that I liked. But that's a big thing, is not now people are taking vacant lots and turning them into gardens. People are coming in and saying, okay, this is, let's do this. And so that you have fresh whatever. And then, kind of like the farmer's market, that they're bringing, whatever I can in, and then 2 days a week I can sell directly to the people instead of to other people. So it's unfortunate. Diabetes is a product of not having fresh fruit, fresh food, et cetera, for a lot of people. And so a lot of
it's a complaint that I have, because I'm a diabetic myself, and I complain all the time that the healthy food is so super expensive.
Orange juice is astronomical, but a soda is $1.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've gone keto, by the way, personally. It's my preferred diet. But hey, I want to point out some things here. I got to do some show stuff. I'm sorry, Vicky.
Yes.
Brandon, the anime guy, became a new member. So there you go. Even though I think he was a member before, so he let it lapse, and YouTube won't carry you over. They make you start all over. YouTube is awesome. Not. And then E. Clay Thomason became a YouTube member. And as I recall, he too is also a member, let it lapse. And so he's back. I really hate YouTube for doing that to him. And I want to get to this question right here. We got to get through these. Heleno06 says, Vicky, tell us about the t-shirt wars during the filming, which had to do with the fight between the Union crew and Ridley. Yes, Gev.
Yes. So on a nice note, because I'm wonderful, I have a couple of show and tell that this has nothing to do with the actual what you're asking me, but I will tell you. Oops.
There it is. Oh, look.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this was one of the 2 t-shirts that we got as crew members. And the other one was white t-shirt with black lettering, which I completely wore out because I did not understand. Oh, you should save it for another time.
Right.
So
you're very utilitarian, aren't you?
You give me a t-shirt, I'm putting it on.
Yep, there you go.
So this is one of the 2 original t-shirts. And hold on. This is the jacket.
Oh, yes,
Nice.
I've seen those. Oh, that is gorgeous.
And just to make proof, it is
Wow.
my jacket.
Oh, it's yours personally. I love it.
I
Your
got my
crew
name
jacket.
on it. So I decided to do a little show and tell
Thank you.
because of you.
Thank you very much, Vicky. You're so sweet. I got to have you on again. I told you I want to have you on more because you're so much fun.
So the t-shirt wars were, someone came from the LA Times and interviewed Ridley. And there used to be a Sunday supplement in the LA Times that was, more magazine-like. And so while we were doing the movie, this supplement came out about Ridley and talking about his first American movie and how the crew was lazy and they didn't know what they were doing, and he always had to tell them what was going on. And basically, we did not look good. And so Marvin Westmore, who was the head of the makeup department, was the first one to see this. And he brought it, and he bought a lot of them, and he set them around so that people could see them. And so here you've got a crew that's working their asses off. We're shooting 18 hours a day, 5 to almost 6 days a week. And he's saying, we're lazy and we don't know what we're doing. And he's just used to, when he tells the crew to do something, instead of the crew grumbling like, oh, that's going to take another 4 hours, they say, yes, governor. So that's the idea came. There were 2 t-shirts, actually. They only talk about one. The crew got together and made t-shirts that said, yes, governor, my ass.
I love that.
And that was the main t-shirt. But there was a secondary t-shirt, the best boy of the electricians. So that's the second up in the electrician, the gaffer or chief electrical technician is the gaffer, and the best boy on grips or electric, they're the ones that hire, they're the ones that keep their time and stuff. They're more bookkeepers, but can step in if something happened to the gaffer. So they're up there. And he was very, very quiet guy, and he kind of came up with this slogan, which he said to enough people that he put like a little plaque in the electrical truck, and everybody kind of knew about it. And then more people started saying, we need that. And it was, Will Rogers never met Ridley Scott. Will Rogers said famously, yep, I never met a man I didn't like.
Yeah.
And
I can see where that was going.
I know.
He said, Will Rogers never met Ridley Scott. So that was the secondary unofficial of the unofficial t-shirt wars. So when everybody, you have to get them together. You have to say, okay, Thursday they'll be in. Everybody put their shirt on. When the English people saw it, Ridley, Michael, Ivor, and Katie, they said, oh, we're being castigated and this is horrible. So they said a t-shirt, something along the lines of xenophobia is horrible.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
And nothing really happened. No one was really upset. No one was really upset. They didn't really care. First, it's 4 people against 200. But the other thing is, I said, you know, most people don't know what xenophobia is.
And the only reason why
which is fear,
Ridley knew is because of Alien.
Fear of foreign things. So you have come back with a comeback that it's like, you've insulted me and I don't know what you're talking about. And so so that was the t-shirt wars, is that the four of them got those t-shirts and wore them. And then the 200 of I did not have a t-shirt. The 200 rest of the people wore theirs. The other thing that happened, which is, I don't know if it's in the book or not, the first AD was Newt Arnold originally, and he had done all the prep, and he had gone through a bunch of the beginning of the movie. But we were very, 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 very behind. And the problem is, you can't fire Ridley and you can't fire Jordan. I know.
Although I got to tell you,
so they
I got to tell you, Bud Yorkin and David
Perez
really did. Yeah, they fired him like 3 times, but he kept having to hire him back. Ridley.
Right. He was an extremely competent, and he was not a screamer. He was somebody who was always helping everybody out. He was an excellent AD, but they kept saying, well, you know, something has to be done. We have to strike fear into Ridley and Jordan so that they'll work faster. So they fired Newt over a long weekend. And so I got a phone call from one of the production managers saying, just so that you know, when you come in on Monday or Tuesday, Newt is gone and this other guy is coming in, and he's bringing in his own key second. I said, well, what happened to the guy who's a key second? Oh, he's still there. Everybody who was on except for Newt is still there. And so these 2 guys came in, and the crew obviously didn't know anything about it because, you know, they didn't call all of them. And the crew got so pissed off that they wore black armbands for 3 days, just on their arms, in honor of Newt. And one of the people who wore it was Harrison.
Oh. How did that go over?
Because it was totally unfair for them to let him go. And the guy that they got in was not as helpful, was not as, we did not go any faster. And I'll just say that.
I got to figure Harrison Ford at that time is pretty powerful. I mean, you're talking about 1982 Harrison Ford. That's Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, American Graffiti, Raiders of the Lost Ark Harrison Ford. So if he shows up with an armband, I wasn't there obviously, but I would assume that should have swayed some things in your favor.
Yeah, the Raiders tank came out yet, so
so the union thing, from what I understand, is Ridley was used to operating the camera when he was in England,
being allowed behind there, and with unions, you're not allowed to do that.
With unions, you're not allowed to do that. You can sit next to the camera, you can operate it in a rehearsal, but you cannot. There's a person who does that
during the actual shooting. And
yeah,
what was it like, though? I got to ask you, because I know Jordan was very comfortable with Ridley, and I know that Jordan was actually also sick. He was in the latter stages of his disease in '82, and but I've read, and I've even talked to Paul about this, that Jordan seemed to be very open to letting Ridley get his way a little bit with him. Did you see a lot of that yourself?
Well, Jordan is not a confrontational person. And as long as Ridley's very visual and Jordan's very visual. So when they're finding like something that's even better visually together, then what is he going to say? No, I want
very
something
very
that looks like
collaborative.
shit.
Yeah, I get it.
Don't
I
do
get it.
that. But here's something that, I mean, here's story. We were shooting the spinner. We're shooting the interior of the spinner on the set, on the stage. So they're trying to figure out lights and, you know, how to.
What scene is this from?
This is from the beginning when Gaff and Deckard are in the spinner.
Flying, gotcha.
Flying. So Ridley would come in and he'd say, okay, I want this. And I'd say, okay, great. Give us 45 minutes. Give us an hour. Okay, so they do it. Now, what would happen? Invariably, Ridley would go to his trailer with his people and he would get a new idea.
Yeah, I heard about this shit too.
He did not tell anybody the new idea. And so when he came back to the set, they were not doing the new idea. They were doing what he had told them an hour ago. So as they're saying, we're almost ready, he's like, this is not what I asked for. And he would change it. And so they would change it. And they'd say, give us an hour or however long. And he would say, okay. And this kept happening. And it's not that they were bad ideas. You know, look at the movie. But when you think you have done what the person has asked for, and they come out and go, no, you idiots, that's not what I asked for. And then he'll make some sketch. And you go, I don't know what that is. And then he says, okay, work on that. And I can't believe that. And then he goes off and it happens over and over and over again. Sometimes we weren't shooting until after lunch because we kept changing what was going on. Yeah. So you can see the frustration of some people who thought, I'm doing what you asked me to do. But sometimes, I mean, like within the first probably 6 weeks, a lot of crew got replaced because after a while you're like, wait, I know what I'm doing. You know, look, I have a union card. It says that I know how to do this. And you keep telling me that I don't. And so sometimes somebody would say, listen, I'm not doing it that way, or this is watch what I do and see if this is better. So you got to the point where a lot of people on the crew were, whatever you want, Ridley, that's what we will do. And those people who
were they just getting flat out exasperated with him?
Yes. And unfortunately, at the time, Jordan could not walk normally. Jordan looked like...
Yeah, he was... Didn't his son show up on set too?
Yes, but his son was much younger.
Much younger, yeah.
But Jordan looked like an athlete. I mean, like, he muscles and everything, but he could not walk. He could run, but he could not walk. So if he had to go to the bathroom, he'd say, I'll be back. And then he would start off kind of like he had gone into slow motion until he could get going. And then he could run and he could come back. So on the weekends, Jordan's playing tennis, but he can't walk around the set. He has to hold on to something. When we were in Choose Lab,
just in case, by the way, let's put it out there. Jordan suffered, he was in the latter stages of Parkinson's disease.
But it had been misdiagnosed as something else.
Yeah.
So he was getting medication for what he did not
something
have.
else. He was they're giving him medication, as I recall, for MS.
Yes.
And it was exacerbating problems for him.
Exactly. So when we got to Choose Lab, which was in an ice house we almost lost him. I mean, like, they had to pick him up and carry him out.
It's heartbreaking.
To outside to warm him up. Now, we had full snowsuits. It's not like he's sitting there in t-shirt or something. I mean, everything that you could do to make this, make everybody as comfortable as possible, you did. But he got to the point where he couldn't stand up, he couldn't walk. So they had to take him out. So then they said, okay, we have to, every like 3 hours, we have to bring him out. So, I mean, it's the sweetest, nicest person. And so his collaboration was great as far as working with Ridley, because they were looking for the same thing. The problem with Ridley was with the actors who were not getting a director.
Well, yeah, this is a problem that I've talked about previously with Ridley, is that he's not known for being a very good actor's director. He expects them to just know what they need to do, and he wants to focus on the overall production, which puts you more into being a good producer and a good cinematographer, not a very good director. And that's where I've also said that the failure of Ridley Scott as a director is in the screenplay. That the stronger his screenplay is before he begins shooting, the better the film. Because he is not what I would refer to as, and this is another reason why I'm afraid of interviewing, because I'll say this and then he'll kill me. And because he knows who I am. And I just try not to have any, because I'm friends with Charlie, been friends with him for a long time. And I wanted to talk about Charlie, but we need to get to that, because you brought something up and I want to bring this in, is Rick Howard can't talk for some reason. He's with us right now. But he brought this up, that Sebastian's eyes glow as well when entering Tyrell's bedroom suite with Batty. And that's true. It does. You can see the reflection on his retina in that scene. And so what I have always said is that was one of those things that he brought onto the set without any real explanation to anybody. The only person that was privy to it was Hampton Fancher later on. This is not something that he even said to Hampton while making the film. It was later on that this was brought up, that he had this idea. And Hampton is like, but that's not in the script that way.
Right. It's not in the script. And
it goes against what Harrison Ford wanted.
Like I said, in Deckard's apartment, it's just an accident. They just happen to be close enough that you see it in both eyes,
because the light was there for her, not for him.
Yes, it's only supposed to be her. And with Sebastian, as Rick just said, it was only supposed to be Batty. It was not supposed to be Sebastian. Nobody's running around saying Sebastian was a replicant, unless there are people who may say that or something. But you don't have somebody that is going to make somebody else. I mean,
well, yeah, and they did the same thing, because if you go back to the beginning, Vicky, you'll see that he lit Morgan Paul's eyes too, and he actually did that one intentionally because the table is in front of him, so they had to really angle that light to hit his eyes just right at that exact moment when he's looking at Leon, for his eyes to reflect that way. And I've always said, look, I'm not against the idea of that being a premise. The problem is it's not fleshed out enough to where it works in the story.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Right.
And I understand Harrison's argument, which is the audience needs to root for somebody. And if you make me one of these creatures, robots, they're biomechanical robots is what they are. They're not clones. They're not androids. They're biomechanical robots. They're made out of biological organs. Everything's biological, but they're pieced together.
Right.
And that's why coming up with the name Replicant was brilliant as a name for what that was. It's like, what a great name. There was so much brilliance in this. You know,
yeah.
Including
Absolutely.
Grabbing and paying for Blade Runner, the right to use Blade Runner.
Right.
You know, brilliant name. I fucking love that name. They're always on the edge.
There's one more little bit.
Yes.
And there's, and you might know about this. There's the picture of Deckard with his wife that's on the piano.
Yes.
Yeah, Decker. That's the, and as I recall, Vicky, correct me if I'm wrong. There were several photos from Harrison Ford on that, his family, that he brought those in because you can see resemblance between his. There's one shot, I believe that's his grandmother.
Yes,
and
it's the oval one.
Yep, the oval one is his actual grandmother. And I thought that was neat they brought that in there because our eye naturally catches similarities in faces. We look for that. That's why films where you got two actors that look nothing alike playing brothers is really weird because our eyes look at
Fast and Furious. Dominic Toretto.
All about family.
I'll tell you some of the best casting.
They actually ask actors if they can bring something in because it needs to be in that same time frame. So it's like if I'm supposed to live in 18th century something and I bring something in when I was a kid, it's not going to look right because I'm not dressed correctly. I'm not in the same thing. But if it's contemporary and they say, hey, we're going to go to your parents' house, example, Quicksilver, at the beginning, Kevin Bacon goes to his parents' house to tell them that he's lost all of their savings. And you go in and you see pictures. So you may have some pictures that we're able to take now, but if you can get him to bring in some pictures of when he was a kid, then you can put that down and you say, okay, this makes it more real. Everything is
it's all about verisimilitude.
No one goes out to make a bad movie. No one. I don't care how horrible the movie is. The people who came together to make it did not say, let's make a piece of shit.
Maybe Matrix 4.
No, even those people.
Howard the Duck.
Even those people. Because Howard the Duck was a cartoon. I mean, it wasn't that they made that up out of whole cloth. Their idea of how to put this together is not a good idea. As I used to say, my mom used to put on some old clothes, to sit around the house. And she says, look, I can still get in this. And I said, yes, just because you can wear it doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, it's from Jurassic Park. Your scientists are so caught up with doing a thing, they don't ask if they should do a thing. Exactly. It's like I could put on my uniform right now from the Army. I would look like Homer Simpson with his clothes shrunk, but it would fit me.
Exactly.
But hey,
exactly.
I wanted to point out
there's a reason that my T-shirt was in my hand and not on my body. Let's just say that.
But hey, I want to show you this. This is some of the best casting I've ever seen right here. I don't know if you watch this show, Superman and Lois, but the casting for the new brother that plays John Kent. Look at these two together.
Wow. Yeah.
They could be fucking brothers.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That is amazing casting. Because I thought the kid that previously played it, he had some kind of nervous breakdown or something.
Oh.
And he had to leave the show.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he looked like him a little bit, but blonde. Then they bring this kid, and I'm like, holy shit. They really know a type, man. They found that type, and they're nailing it. But I wanted to bring this guy up. This is Charlie Deslarica. He was Ridley's producer, DVD Blu-ray producer for years. I don't know if he's still doing it because he's working on his own filmmaking career, and he's done some great work. I love this guy. I love his work. Charlie, of course, made a lot of the fixes for the final cut. He made all the fixes under the supervision of Ridley Scott, but he did all the fixes. And two of the major fixes that I love was that he did the snake dealer Hassan, the lip flap in that scene, because Harrison Ford's mouth is moving or not moving. You're hearing dialogue. And of course, that's referred to as a lip flap. And that existed in every iteration until the final cut. And what did Charlie do? This fucking guy, this guy right here, he went and got Harrison's son, who was a chef in Hollywood, Ben, and got him to come in and do the movement, shot it, and marked off his face. And all he did is he added digitally added his mouth and chin to the scene. And it's so freaking perfect. And I've got an eye for that stuff. I can't spot how Charlie did it. It's so freaking brilliant. And I want to show this clip real quick, if you don't mind, Vicky. This is one of my favorite moments in the final cut. And he really does an amazing job fixing this. And this, I always love that too. The little kiosk for police.
Yes.
There he is. He taps on the glass here. And I don't know, can you hear this okay?
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't either.
Let me pause it.
I don't hear it.
Let me pause it. Because sometimes it'll do that shit. I had it up there for a while and it'll just let go of the audio. There we go. Try it again.
Abdul Hassan. Police officer, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Artificial snake license XB71, that's you? This is your work, huh? Who'd you sell it to?
My work? Not too many could afford such quality.
How many?
Very few.
How few? Look, my friend.
Dr. Lewis is down in for...
Absolute fixed it.
Yes.
I love that.
Nailed it.
I love that he did that, man.
Yes.
Just some really brilliant work on his part.
Yes.
By getting Ben Ford in there and having his son play him.
Yes.
Just for this part of his face. And he nailed it. The kid looks like him too, from the nose down. Looks like his mom from the cheeks up. That looks like his dad from the nose down.
He looks the most like his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, Charlie
had a restaurant called Ford's Filling Station. And it was in Culver City, and then he closed it and moved it to downtown. I don't know if it's still there or not. It may be part of a hotel, but I thought that was a very clever name.
Yeah, Ford's
Filling
love
Station.
that.
Yeah.
But whatever you do, don't open a theater and name it Ford's Theater.
Nobody would go.
I don't know if anybody would get it. Definitely no presidents.
Exactly.
My friend Gerald.
John, you have been, I'm sorry, T-shirt, you've been quiet this whole show too. What's going on with you, man? Cat got your tongue?
No, man. I'm just enjoying the conversation. I didn't want to interrupt or anything.
Oh, dude, you're supposed to. That's why you're here.
What?
I only keep talking because nobody else is.
I have a question. I have a question for Vicky.
Go for it, William.
All right. So I'm assuming you've seen Blade Runner 2049. I'm hoping you have. Okay. Listen, I'll probably be in the minority on here, but I grew up. I saw Blade Runner in the theaters, and I've grown up with Blade Runner as part of my life. And I think 2049 is a superior movie, but not at the detriment of the original Blade Runner. I consider them one full production and one full circle. When you saw Blade Runner 2049, did you see a lot of the lineage from the movie you worked on and the movie that you saw in 2017 when you did see it?
No.
Yeah, there you go, William.
Well, no, I mean, I didn't want to manufacture the answer.
Here's because William was really shocked when I said this, that Gary Willoughby and I, we're the two Blade Zone guys, and both of us are pretty much really oddly simpatico on this. That 2049, it's not that I hate the film, because I don't. I actually really like the film. My problem is genetically in the DNA, it doesn't feel related to Blade Runner because he went for a different visual look for it. And so it's visually not similar. And on top of that, I will say that shooting script wise, it's a better structured story than Blade Runner 1982 but I don't blame Ridley for that. I blame the fact that Bud York and Jerry Parenteau kept fucking around. And them fucking with Ridley is what screwed up that film. It's why we didn't get Mary. Because what's her name? Barry Bostwick's wife played Mary.
Stacey Nelkin.
Stacey Nelkin. And they shot just one scene, her death scene. And it's not in the film because it's pointless to have it in there.
She did not get in front of camera at all.
Oh, I thought she did in the closet.
No.
When they find her body.
They were bringing her in. She had makeup tests, she had wardrobe, she had everything. She was all set to go. And they said, we cannot add a new character. We are so far behind. We cannot add a new character who you have to introduce and da 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 da. We can't shoot what we're supposed to shoot. We can't add something, even though it's not an addition in that it was in the script. But it was an addition in the fact that we've never seen this person before, and she never filmed. We never filmed anything with her.
That's sad, because I thought I'd read somewhere that she did do a closet scene where she was already dead. That she was found dead. But again, I trust you over what I read. So, but I want to again go to this guy, Charlie Deslarica, with his work on this scene. He went in and fixed this shot from the film. Let's go ahead and throw this up here real quick. This is the famous death scene from Roy Batty. And the big mistake is when the dove flies out of his hand and then we shoot the angle to the sky.
All those moments.
And were you here for this scene?
Yes.
In time.
It must have been something else to see him go into the trailer and come out with this.
Yeah.
Do it.
Tears in rain.
Tears in Rain is all him.
Time to die.
Okay, now you make me freaking cry.
And I want to point out, this is my only moment of complaint against the narration. The narration is one of my favorite parts of the 82 film, except for this moment, because it was intrusive to the emotional impact of him dying. It's suddenly right here at this moment is when the narration kicks in. I don't know why he saved me. And it's like, oh my God, seriously? Let me enjoy the fucking moment before you start throwing that narration in there. Only moment of narration I didn't like. I felt like they should have pushed it.
I do got to ask Vicky, since I'm supposed to interrupt and ask questions.
Wait, let's do this real quick. I want to finish this.
Okay.
I'm sorry, T-shirt.
Don't forget.
But do not forget to ask her. Now, then we see the dove come up. And you know what they'll gank us for is the goddamn Vangelis music. And then right here, that's Charlie Deslarica's work.
Yes. That fixed a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely did.
Huge problem.
And,
all right, T-shirt.
Yeah. So my question is,
I'm sorry, T-shirt.
Bro. So okay, I've read the a lot of the background stuff on this, and they said that during that scene, when they shot that scene, that they actually had crew that were like literally like weeping and stuff seeing that.
Yeah, did they get emotional on the set?
So here's something I don't know. I will be the first person to admit I have not read all of Paul's book because I lived it. So I don't want to either say, oh, that didn't happen, or I didn't see that, whatever. So I don't know when things are in it or not. But we were shooting. This was the last night. This was the last day, and we're shooting night, and then the sun will come out tomorrow.
That's right.
And suddenly the sun came up, and the only thing they could get was gaff at the spinner, and then
you can see the sunlight hitting him.
Yes, and then the bird going up into the bright blue sky, and then Ridley turned to Larry Paul and said, and David Snyder, and said, "We're not done. What can we do?" This set was on top of a 3-story high building. So only the people who needed to be up there were seeing it. Only the operator or whatever. But now it's in bright sunlight. We cannot, if we wrap, we're not coming back. And they moved the entire set, the column, the TDK, everything onto a stage that we had and set it all up. It took hours for them to set this up, but we were now on stage so it could be dark again. And we had to set up the rain, which was not supposed to be there, and set up everything so that we could now do the rest of the scene, which is his death scene, which is the most important.
And those rooftops were on wheels, as I recall, right?
Huh? Yeah, they were on wheels.
Yeah,
so you could push them and make a new alleyway and make a new street.
Yeah.
Because we had 4 streets, but it's supposed to be Los Angeles. So you can't say these. Go, wow, that street looks really familiar.
That's a narrow street too.
That's a really narrow street.
Narrow streets in L.A.
Exactly, and so you could push this and turn it and make it look like a new street. And so this had to come down off of that 3-story high building and go onto the stage. And by this time, we've been working 20-something hours. We have to go to McDonald's and get breakfast for everybody because caterers left long ago. Harrison sat down in the water and decided, fuck it, I'm not moving.
That's a Harrison move.
He's like, I'm soaked to the skin. This is where I'm going to be, or, I'm going to have to move a few feet to get to where we're going. And I'm just going to sit here in the water. And he did. And so Rutger went out and he, came up with this new thing. Well, we didn't hear the old thing because they were on top of this building. So now, but we know it's in the script, and that's not in the script. And so when he came up with it, and suddenly this scene of just brilliance. Yes, people were teary, but they were also delirious. So I can't say that it's one thing or the other. I think it's a combination of this poetry that happened unexpectedly after being beaten up for months and months and months and months and months, to have something that we were not going to be privy to. So it was very emotional. And when we finished that scene, we wrapped, and that was it. And my fellow ADs, we commanded an electric cart. We claimed this cart in the name of Blade Runner. And we got in it and we drove around Warner Brothers like crazy people, screaming and hollering for 15 minutes. And then we collected our paperwork and we went back to work for another 2 hours while we finished our paperwork. But it was a great moment to end, where the crew was able to actually see what was going on that they would not have been able to see before. And, like I said, it was in the script, and that wasn't in the script. So that was like really interesting that he was able to come up with this. That was really nice. Does that answer your question?
Well, he's a poet at heart, because I got to know Rutger over the years. Despite that first phone call of him burping in my ear like 3 times. And another funny one was Gary Willoughby and I were the ones who found Joe Turkel, because the Internet Movie Database said he was dead. And Gary and I found him. and we were like, he's not dead. I'm not dead yet.
I'm not dead yet.
Better.
I think I'll go for a walk.
So I was planning to do an interview. Gary ended up doing the interview, but the first time I talked to him, I said, so Mr. Turkel, what do you prefer to be called? Joe, Joseph? And he responded to me, Mr. Turkel. I went, okay, Joe. And I'm like going, why did you just do that? Why did you do that? And every single time I ever talked to him again, I called him Joe, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? He told you he doesn't want to be called that. I've got like this dick in my head. He's an asshole that lives in my head, and he makes me do things that just make no sense. But there's a video on here, and I'll show it to you after the show, Vicky. I made about Rutger because I was very emotional because he had just made a video for us, Blade Zone, for the death of Roy Batty, his incept date and all that for his birthday. And he sent us a video. He's such a sweetheart. Whenever we asked anything of him, he did it. And he's just such a wonderful guy. But yeah.
Well, just real quick with Vicky. So after all was said and done, like you finally got home, the whole thing's like, how did you feel about the movie? Because it hadn't come out. Were you thinking that, okay, I went through hell, but this might be something special? Or you were just like, this did so much to me. I never want to see this movie. I never want to see anything with it ever again. Because I've worked on stuff that people have loved, but like it puts you through so much shit. You want nothing to do with it after. That was my experiences.
Right. I think the crew was, and me in particular, because being an AD means I'm usually there an hour and a half after everybody else with paperwork and stuff. So, you have to do your most paperwork after 20 hours of work. I think that so many things, well, for me, so many things were unique. So many things were things that I had never, ever, ever seen before. And yes, I was new to the business, but I've watched movies forever and I've never seen anything like it. And so I think that the crew wanted to see how it was all going to come together. They knew it was different. They knew it was unique, but we didn't have a sense of what was it all going to look like. Because like I said, when you've been lighting for 6 hours, then you just want to turn the camera on. You're kind of like, let's just go. Let's just do something. And so it's not that you see the difference between the first rehearsal and then the next rehearsal and the next rehearsal. We're not privy to that. We're not looking through the camera. Nowadays, they have Video Village that has a tap that goes from the camera, how many ever cameras you have, to a little box that the director can sit over there and see it. We didn't have that. So whoever was looking through the camera was the only person who could see what it looked like. And so that was, and then dailies, which the old thing of at lunchtime, the department heads go and see dailies. Normally it's open to whoever wants to go. These dailies were not. These were department heads only. So you never, ever got a chance to see what it looked like in the camera. One time I had to come into dailies to ask a question, and when I walked in, they stopped them until I said, I need to get this answer, and I got the answer, and then when I left, they started it again. So, and I'm pretty high, on the food chain, I was pretty high up. So that was the thing, is that we wondered, yes, we were beaten up completely, but it was doing something different and interesting that you had never done before. And so you wanted to see, what was it going to look like when it's all together? What is it going to look like with all the special effects, et cetera, et cetera. I think that was the big thing, is we couldn't wait to see it. Now, as I said earlier, normally, especially on a feature, but I've done on TV shows and stuff, you have a cast and crew screening for the beginning so that the cast and the crew can see what it looks like. And we never had one. So when they actually had a crew screening. It was, once again, department heads and executives. So the crew, by that time, we were, spread across the U.S., but it was never, you never got something in the mail saying, hey, come see what we put together. Come see what this looks like, which was very sad because we also didn't have a wrap party. So like little things that were thank yous to the crew, we didn't have. We didn't have a wrap party. We didn't have a cast and crew screening. And so, once again, to us, it was the t-shirt wars all over again. Like, you're there to do what I want you to do, when I want you to do it, how I want you to do it, and then you can go away. So
why was it like that though?
Animosity.
We got to stop. We got to stop, man. I was doing a wrap up and Shinatsky threw me off my game by starting a new question in the last few minutes of the show.
All right, go ahead, Gary.
I've got some comments here. Oh my God, I got less than a fucking minute. Let's see. There was an episode of Original Magnum PI that used the ending of the theme from Blade Runner in the opening scene of the Star Sharon Stone. Practical repurposing police kiosk equals Holden's hospital bed.
Yes.
Are you all excited for a Denis Villeneuve, Dune 2, or Ridley Scott's Gladiator?
Dune 2.
Hey, Fletcher Williams. Reproducing the replicant took balls. Charlie and crew did amazing work. Nan, I got to thank everybody who's fucking here. Thanks again, Shinatsky, you cocksucker. I will punch you right in your snot locker.
I love you too, Gary.
Logical Spock, Anima Confusa, the love of my life. Deleted scenes, Andy Marl, Slasher Fred, Monkey Jeebus, Badass, Dragon Ruse, Love Spec, Linux, Laptop, Heleno 06, Lady V, Elements, Penny, Zax, Peter Vickman Fansite, BRB, blah, 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 Keith Movie Geek, good guy, Hex Allen Comics. Oh my God, there's a lot of fucking comments in here. I think that's it. I'm going to, one last thing I have to do because Kyle is here. I have to play this really quick. It's important because whenever Kyle shows up, I want to play this video. Where's it at? There it is.
I want to offer you a full promotion, right? Better hours, better pay, better parking space. In fact, Kyle's parking space. But hey, fuck you, Kyle.
Congratulations.
That's it. All right, guys. Stick around, Vicky. We'll talk after the show. Go ahead, Martin, and play the outro credits.
Those sons of bitches.
Ma, I'm doing a show.